Hello and welcome to COLREGS in Depth. This week we're going to be looking at Rule 14, which covers head-on situations. First things first, where is Rule 14 found? Well, Rule 14 falls within Part B, Section 2, Conduct of Vessels in sight of one another. Rule 11, straight away clarifying, rules in this section apply to vessels in sight of one another. So we know Rule 14 applies only when two vessels can be observed visually from each other. They need to be in sight. So let's delve straight into the rule, looking at the first paragraph. When two power-driven vessels are meeting on reciprocal or nearly reciprocal courses, so as to involve risk of collision, each shall alter her course to starboard, so that each shall pass on the port side of the other. There's a couple of key points here, firstly being when two power-driven vessels, so the vessels have to be power-driven. Hopping straight down to Rule 3, we know the term power-driven vessel means any vessel propelled by machinery. Obviously you can see Part C there, the term sailing vessel, is different to power-driven, so this rule will not apply unless both vessels are power-driven. Then it goes on to say they need to be meeting on reciprocal or nearly reciprocal courses. So reciprocal simply means 180 degrees from the other. For example, one's going north and one's going south. Maybe one's going east and the other's going west. And they need to be approaching so as to involve risk of collision. So basically, if risk of collision does not exist, obviously you don't need to apply these rules. And then it immediately says, each shall alter her course to starboard, so that each shall pass on the port side of the other. It's telling both vessels they've got to take action, which means both vessels are the give-way vessel, so in a head-on situation, there is no stand-on vessel. So let's have a look at what this looks like on a diagram. Okay, taking this diagram, we'll have a blue vessel down at the bottom of the screen. She's going along quite happily, heading due north, 000. Then she sees the red vessel up ahead. Now the red vessel, they know that they're going due south, 180. So these two are actually meeting on reciprocal courses. First thing they need to establish is whether risk of collision exists. To do that, they've got to continue to monitor for a little while. After a while, they've established the bearing between them is not changing, so they know risk of collision exists. They also know they're in sight of one another, they know they're both power-driven vessels, and they're meeting on reciprocal courses. Therefore, this is a head-on situation within the meaning of the rules. As per the first part of the rule, both vessels shall alter their course to starboard, so that each shall pass on the port side of the other. Once they've altered round to starboard, of course, the port side light is visible from both vessels. They can continue past each other until risk of collision is over and they're finally passed and clear, at which point they're free to alter back round to port and continue on their previous passage. So Part A of the rule immediately says what each vessel shall do and actually determines the exact action that they shall take. They have to both alter to starboard. Now on to Part B. Part B tells us when a head-on situation exists. Such a situation shall be deemed to exist when a vessel sees the other ahead or nearly ahead, and by night she would see the masthead lights of the other vessel in a line or nearly in a line, and or both side lights, and by day should observe the corresponding aspect of the other vessel. So it's basically said you need to see the other one ahead, which makes sense because it's got to be a head-on situation, and the masthead lights need to be in a line or nearly in a line, and by day it would be the same aspect. Part C continues Part B a little bit and just says when a vessel's in doubt as to whether such a situation exists, she shall assume that it does and act accordingly. So if you're in doubt as to whether it's a head-on, then you need to assume that it is and act accordingly. So let's have a look at some diagrams of some vessels to determine what we mean by masthead lights in a line and or both side lights. So at night it would be complete darkness. You would see the masthead light, which is the main mast, which is the after one, and then the foremast, which is the forward one, would be lower than the after one. You'd also see a port side light and a starboard side light. Seeing both side lights means that the ship is coming straight towards you. You can see straight on her bow. As she turns around slightly, you can see the masthead lights will gradually start to separate. The green side light, of course, will still be very visible, and for a time the port one will, but obviously it'll be getting dimmer as she's turning and covering it. As she turns yet further still, separation between the masthead lights will increase, the port side light will disappear, and only the starboard side light will be visible. This will carry on until she is right out on the beam, on the broadest possible aspect, and this will be the maximum separation between the two masthead lights. Of course, in this situation she will be going right from the left hand side of the screen to the right hand side of the screen. Of course, in the daytime you'd be seeing the corresponding aspect of the vessel, either head on or at intervals until she is right out on the beam. So with that diagram we've seen exactly what we mean by masthead lights in a line or nearly in a line, and or viewing both side lights. Of course, by day with the aspect of the vessel it will be slightly clearer as to whether she's head on or not. Also in part C we can see that if you're in doubt you've got to assume that it's head on and act accordingly, i.e. be the giveaway vessel and alter your course broadly to starboard. And that brings us to the end of 14. We've seen exactly what we mean by a head-on situation. We've seen the fact that both vessels are giveaway vessels, both must alter their course to starboard, and we've seen how you define whether it's a head-on situation or not. I hope you found the information useful in this video. Next time we'll be moving on to Rule 15, looking at crossing situations. So until next time, goodbye.